Welcome to the marking out video for our lovely pine jewellery box. It's a box that can be used for anything really, fishing tackle, sweets, biscuits. For our purposes we'll just call it a jewellery box. So it's a lovely simple construction using finger joints. This is an early prototype here with a screwed on base, our finger joints on the corner, and we have a simple but elegant top that fits nicely onto the box. So for the marking out, you're going to need this video obviously, and we also need some basic marking out tools. So we're going to need our steel rule, we're going to need a marking knife or a chisel, a marking gauge, tri-square, your 2H pencils. In the video I will use pen just to make it a little bit more obvious to the camera, but you can use a 2H pencil, is the best one for woodwork. And we also need our drill, just to drill any pilot holes that we have marked out. So we'll get started. You're going to need some wood. So if you check in the link below, you can order a kit from ourselves. It will come in a box like this with all the bits of wood you need and the glue that you need to make the jewellery box. Alternatively, there's a link below for Patreon where you can sign up, and I will send you a cutting list so you can choose your own species of timber. You can use walnut, maple, cherry, a mix of different timbers. And by signing up to Patreon, you also get access to all the videos as well, with the marking out, the making and the cutting of all the projects. So if you want to buy the kit from us, just click on the eBay link below. This is what you'll get. You get a tub of PVA glue that I specify myself. This is quick drying and very, very strong, waterproof PVA glue as well. You can also use your own. I just include this in the kit because I've used it for years and I absolutely swear by it. In the kit for the jewellery box then, we've got a number of different pieces. Smallest piece for the handle on the lid. We've got another piece for the underside of the lid. We'll go through the sizing of all these in a moment. Got two side or end pieces. Then four larger pieces. So we've got the base of the box. This is the main part of the lid. And these are the two side pieces for the box itself. So we'll measure those up and write the names of each piece on it. Always keep your box and your protection to wrap up the wood until you're finished with it. This box could also be used if you want to give it away as a present to somebody when you're finished. So let's have a look at all the individual pieces, just measure them up so you know which is which. Smallest piece is for the handle on the lid. It's measuring 100 by 30 by 18 millimeters. So if you want, we can write that on. Again, use your pencil, nice and lightly. I'm just going to use a pen for the purpose of the video. So we'll just call this the handle. Just take your time when you're writing on your wood, marking out. We have an old saying, measure twice, cut once. So this is the base. The base is 120 by 185 by 18 millimeters. We'll just write base on that. Once you write the name of the piece on, it means you can't mix it up when you are marking out and cutting out. This other piece then is 130 by 85 millimeters by 18 millimeters, and this is the lid underside. This is the part that holds into the actual box. So we'll call that the lid under. With another piece the same size as the base, 185 by 120 by 18 millimeters. That is the lid itself, the main lid. So we can keep those three pieces together, the lid, the underlid and the handle. We'll have a look at marking out those first. They're probably the easiest part of the project. These two large pieces then are the front and back of the main box. They are 120 by 165 by 18. So we'll call one the front. And we also have the back. This will be easy to erase and sand off when you do it in pencil, not really with pen. When you write on wood with pen, the ink tends to get down deep into the fibres and it's difficult enough to remove. These are the end pieces, so we'll call it end 1 and end 2. And they measure 120 by 120 by 18, so square shape. So our front, back and our two end pieces, they stay together. We'll be marking out finger joints, just like here, onto those. Our base will just simply have some pilot holes for attaching onto the sides. And our lid will simply be glued together like that, and our handle will be screwed on. So that's the first piece we're going to have a look at now to mark out. So our lid involves three pieces. Our handle, which has two little angles cut off the end. So we'll just show you how to mark those out. We come in 1.5 centimeters, 15 millimeters from one end. Just put a little mark and join that to the bottom corner. And we use some X's to mark our waist. So that's where we're going to be sawing off. Same on the other end of the handle. Come in 1.5 centimeters, 15 millimeters. And we join that to bottom corner. Always take your time putting your X's on. You want to be absolutely sure that you know what you're going to cut off. Now with our tri-square, we want to mark the top 2 points here. We want to bring those across the wood, so we know where the saw will be going straight. We will be talking about a thing called face side and face edge in the marking out of the finger joints on the sides. We don't particularly need it here on the handle. And we'll join these points back to the bottom corners on the reverse side. Be as accurate as you can. The more accurate you are in the marking out, the less sanding and finishing you'll have to do later on. Okay, so that's the handle. It's pretty easy. The underlid needs absolutely no work whatsoever. That will be glued on to the other part of the lid later on, almost at the end of the project when the box is made, so we get it in the right position. So we can leave that to one side for the moment. Our lid, that needs a screw going right through the center so we can attach our handle. So we'll draw an X from one corner to the other on the lid piece. You can go the whole way along the ruler, or if you're good at guessing, and just approximate the middle so we don't have much rubbing out to do later on. And the same from this corner to this corner here. So that marks the dead center of the lid, and we'll just use our drill now to drill a small pilot hole through the wood so that our screw doesn't crack the wood when it's put in. So I like to use cordless screwdrivers, cordless drills. This has a little 2mm pilot bit in it. So we'll put our wood into the vise. You could also do this over the side of the desk if you are confident enough that the vise will just hold it in place better. We don't want to squeeze this wood too tight here because we are going to be lining up the grain on the wood with the edge of the vise, and when those lines match up with the direction of the vise and you squeeze it too tight, there's a tendency for the wood to snap. So we just want to go nice and gentle with this. So just get it held nice and gently. Just check that it's nice and level in the vise as well. And we'll drill down straight through that X that we just made. So just letting the weight of the drill itself push the bit through the wood, rather than forcing it, as these are very weak, these smaller than kind of 4mm drill bits, and they'll break easily. Okay, so that gives us a pilot hole right through the center. That will allow us to put a screw in to attach on our handle. And then we will be gluing on the base. So you'll end up with a structure that looks pretty similar to this. And we'll also cut our little angles off just to give it a bit more of an aesthetic appearance, make it look a little bit more modern. So that's our lid marked out fully and ready for processing. And we'll move on now to the finger joints on the side. Now, for our finger joints, these are the main woodworking part of this project. You can see in the prototype, we've got 5 fingers on each corner. The end pieces contain 2 male fingers, and the front and back contain 2 female receiving pieces. So altogether we get this beautiful square, nice decorative corner. If you choose to make it from 2 different colour timbers, like maybe a cherry and an oak, or a walnut and a maple, you get a beautiful effect on the corner with the different colours coming through. So to mark that, we start with our end pieces. We have our grain going crossways, and we want to mark in the thickness of the timber that these are going to be going into. So if you take your front and back piece and you put them to the side, you get a rough idea from that of how the box is going to go together. So what we usually do at this stage is number the corners so that we know which corner goes with which. We're going to actually mark and make the male joints and use those to mark out the female joints so that they fit perfectly together. So I'm going to put a number 1 on top of these 2 corners here, number 2, and so on. So we know that these corners will always be fitted together. A numbering system like this will give you very, very good results. So now we can take the front and back and leave them to one side and just have a look at the marking out of the male parts of the ends. So all our wood is 18mm thick, so we can use any piece we like to mark a nice line around the ends of both pieces, 18 millimeters in from the end. So to do that, we'll just put our end on its side, and we can take the front piece, it doesn't really matter, and we can mark the thickness of the timber, and we repeat that for the other side. We'll do that for the other end as well, end number 1. Again, keep your pencil very sharp. I'm just using the pen here for the purposes of making it easy to see in the video. So you'll end up with 2 marks on the end of each one. Now we want to use our tri-square then to mark those lines all the way around, and this is where we use a thing called face side and face edge in woodwork to get our lines to match up all the way around and to get more accurate joints. So we pick one side of the wood, we'll pick end 1 here, and we will put, this is a woodworking version of the letter P, and on the side it's attached to an upside down V, and I'll make a separate video on the exact use of the tri-square, but for this purposes just remember the tri-square is only to touch the P side and the V side, the face side and the face edge. So if we take that V, we can rest the tri-square on top of it there, on top of it there. This is the P side or the face side. We can rest our tri-square on top here or on top here, and that will allow us to bring lines all the way around. So we sit that in nice and tight, draw our line down, keeping it on the V, try and do as many sides at once and it'll speed up your woodworking. So there we have our parallel lines. We want to bring them over the top here, so we put the tri-square onto the P. It's easier work this sitting on your desk. Rotate that over. So that gives us twin lines there on the side and on the bottom. Now we sit this on the V, bring them down the back. Take your time, make sure that your tri-square has no gaps in here. Sharp pencil here is an absolute must. It's a bit trickier to line it up with a pen, but a pencil will be very easy. Okay, so that's our 3 sides. And we finish off by coming back from the P side and just drawing our lines across, and that will mean that our lines will match up all the way around. If the wood was miraculously perfectly square all the way around or rectangular, we would never need the P and the V, but unfortunately wood is not like that. What looks like a perfect rectangle to the eye is slightly off rectangular, so you have little bits of warp and stuff, so you've got to account for that by using face side and face edge, P and V. So that's one end. I repeat that then for the other side. Okay, so just finishing up end number 2, marking our 18mm lines all the way around. Sticking with our face side and face edge method with our tri-square. So they're absolutely identical, end 1 and end 2. Now we'll work on end 1 here. We have 5 fingers to mark out here in a total length of 120mm. So that gives us 24mm for each finger. Now taking your ruler, we mark 24mm. Just make sure your rule is absolutely flush with the end. Got to be accurate here. We mark 24 and 24 is 48. But then we just flip the wood and measure back the same from the other side. 24 and 24 are 48. Okay, so that should leave us with 24 in the middle. So this one worked out perfect. You could end up with 23 and a half, 25 there. It doesn't matter as long as your 2 outside ones are exactly the same. So I want to use a tri-square again we can bring those marks across to the other side of the wood. So we generally don't have to use a lot of ruler in woodwork, we just use our measurements once and try and bring them across the wood. Of course, we're working on the presumption here that your kits are absolutely perfectly square, or the wood you buy, the kits we sell you will be perfectly square, so you don't particularly need face side and face edge markings to do this piece. Also, pencil here is very accurate. So you can see the 5 fingers marked there. We'll be removing piece 1, the middle and the end piece to leave 2 fingers in the middle. So we repeat that for end number 2. Again, we go 24 and 24. It's 48. From the other side. 24 and 24, 48. Again, never rushing your marking out, this is so important. And we bring those across the wood. Some people find the marking out a little bit boring, and other people prefer the marking out than the making. So I suppose at the woodwork we need to get a love for both. I find this part very enjoyable as you're setting out really how good your project will be at the end. So I need to bring those lines around using the tri-square again. We'll just show you one end and you repeat for the other 3 sides on end 1 and end 2. So we just go across the top, keeping our tri-square in nice and tight. You'll get the hang of using a tri-square after a while. We're not obsessed with face side and face edge here. Okay, so we're over the top there. And we gotta go down the back side. One, two. Of course, I could be marking out the other side while I'm doing that. So we're getting our 5/24s. Again, be as accurate as you can. Don't be upset if it's a tiny bit off. We can fix that in the actual cutting out and the making of the joints themselves. Just the more accurate we are here, the less work we will have later on. So these are just a tiny little bit off, but not enough to worry. So we'll repeat that for our other end piece. We can also mark the positions of the waist on this, so we know where to cut out. So that's end 1 there, fully marked out. Now just to put X's in our waist areas, so we're going to be removing this piece of the finger, this one and this one. So we'll mark that on the end grain and on the back. And our 2 side pieces. Now, a little tip, if you've got a number on here, I've got number 3 on here, you would need to just put a number 3 below the line, because that's going to be removed obviously, and our number 3 will disappear. No problem on the other side. So you can see we have a number 4 there, so we'll just put in a new number 4 and X that one. X, 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 X for waist. Clearly marking everywhere that we're going to be removing with the saw and the chisels in the cutting out video. So you can see you'll be left with 2 fingers here and 2 fingers here. So we'll proceed to take these now and mark them onto the side, the front and back sides of the project, and then we're very close then to actually cutting out and assembling our box. So with our front and back, we do a similar process to the end pieces. We need to mark in our 18mm and mark it all the way around the wood, and using a face side and face edge. So we'll mark a face side and face edge on the front, and we'll mark a face side and face edge on the back. And we'll use both pieces of timber then just to measure 18mm in from the end. Okay, so we want to bring these 2 lines all the way around our wood using the tri-square. Again, using the V and the P, face side and face edge, to make sure that our lines match up when we go around. So we have 4 of these to do, all exactly the same. And making sure that if we use the P and the V, our lines will match up when we come across. Okay. So that's all the way around. We'll repeat that for the other side and for both ends of the back piece also. Now we want to roughly assemble our box here on the desk, front, back, end 2, which is going here. Got our matching numbers, 1, 1, 2, 2, and then we have our 3 and 4. So we're going to repeat the process I'm going to do next 4 times in total. So we can take away these 2 pieces, and we're just going to deal with corners 1 and 1. I'm going to lay them flat on the bench, and what we're looking to do is to get them nice and level and to mark our lines from the male onto the female part. Now a good tip here is to use your ruler. That will keep your pieces of wood flush against each other, just like that. Down on the desk is much easier. And holding everything nice and steady, we'll bring our marks over. Now this is probably the slowest part of the marking out and the most important, as this will ensure that the males and the females match up perfectly in corner 1 and then corner 2, 3 and 4 in turn. So those 4 marks have come from the male joints, and we want to just mark those with our tri-square here on corner number 1. And when we have it marked out, we'll just check it against corner number 1 again to ensure that everything matches up. Again, when we cut it out, we will have a little bit of chiseling, a little bit of fitting to do, but it shouldn't be a whole lot if this is nice and accurate. While I'm marking this now, you can have a guess at where our waist or our X's are going on these 5 markings. Going to be the opposite of the end pieces, isn't it? Again, at any stage, just pause the video, rewind, or just hold your ground until you catch up with me. So that's our females marked on the back piece, corner number 1. I'll repeat that for 2, 3 and 4. And just check now that these actually match up again. So we'll take corner number 1 here, just match it up. And you can see, once I cut those out, there'll be an absolute perfect match. Okay. So on corner 1 here, as I said, we're going to be keeping the two pieces here, getting rid of the middle and the 2 ends. These are the male parts of the joint. We need to rewrite number 1, remember, here, because this is going to get an X. And you can see, for this joint to work, I would have to remove just 2 pieces of the female end of the wood. So by removing these 2 pieces and the 3 pieces with the X waist here on part 1, they will slide together nicely to give us that lovely finger joint effect on the box. So you need to repeat that now for corner 2, 3 and 4 nice and slowly, making sure that you, just like here, number 1 works to number 1, number 2 will be marked out onto number 2, etc. So we're just finishing off the front end here. These are the fingers on corner number 2, perfectly matching the fingers on the female corner number 2. Then we have corner number 3, and so on. So I'm on the last corner here now, number 4. Small bit of tri-square work to do. And then that is all the marking out of the pencil part. And before we take it for processing and cutting out, we're going to be looking at a process called scribing, where we use a chisel or marking knife to actually indent all the lines that we're going to saw. And that will give us a much better saw cut finish as well. We'll demonstrate that now next. Okay, final thing to do before we start cutting this out is we're going to take a nice sharp 1-inch chisel. 18mm or 25mm actually is probably a little bit easier to use. We're going to need the 18mm chisel obviously to fit in between the 24mm lines, but we can use the wider chisel for all the rest. We're going to actually use the edge of this, you can use a sharp knife either, and we're going to make a little indentation along the lines that have an X inside them. So for the front piece, we're going to go all the way around this X. We're going to go all the way around this X, across the ends, and on the back, we're going to scribe all the way around the X's as well. Now, on the wood, we've got our grain direction here, closely linked to our ring lines here. So we don't want to put in too much pressure on the chisel when you're going in the same direction as the lines. So you can see that chisel is parallel to the line, as your wood would easily split. You can apply a little bit more pressure going across the grain, or 90 degrees to these lines. And the purpose of this is to actually cut the grain in the wood and give us a lovely clean edge to our saw cuts and make our joint fitting much easier. So start off with the 1-inch chisel. We want to scribe up these lines and all the way around to the other side, and then we'll use the 18mm chisel for these two lines here and these two lines here. We repeat that on both ends of the front and the back, and we also repeat it for our end pieces. Our end pieces are slightly different. We're going to be scribing all the way around the X like this. This one is similar to the female one, and we're going to be scribing all the way around this X. So when I'm finished, every single X that you see or waste on these 4 pieces of wood should have a little indentation with the chisel made all the way around. So just to show you that here on the front piece. So we take the chisel, put it on the line and just press it in a little bit. And you'll hear a little bit of crunching of the wood, and that's good. That is the grain getting torn. Nice sharp chisels here, by the way, very helpful. It might be difficult to hear the crunching on the video, but if you're nice and quiet, you'll hear your own wood making a lovely crunching sound. So that's along here and here, here and here. Same on the back. I think you'll find by using this scribing process, you're going to get much better woodwork joints, and it will add to your enjoyment of the cutting out part and the end result as well. Okay, so you can place wood in the vise to do the 4 end lines. Is probably safer. If you've been doing woodwork for a while, it's fine just to give it a gentle mark with your chisel. Never ever put your hand on the wood and mark the wood with the other hand on the chisel. If that slips, it's going straight into your hand. At all times, you want to keep both hands up on the chisel. You can really hear the crunch of the grain here on the end. Again, you don't want to press in too hard here. You might actually split the wood. It's like cutting a log with an axe. Okay, so I'll repeat that for all the other X's on our joints. And then with a slightly smaller chisel, this is an 18mm Stanley, we will scribe along here and here on all our joints. Again, I'd be much happier using a pencil here, but it's difficult to see on the recording, so I'm just going to have to suffer along with a pen for the video series. Now, because we're going cross grain here, you can really hear that crunching sound. You can push in a little bit harder in this direction because you're going at right angles to the grain. Okay, so that's a lovely, satisfying sound. So now we have a nice scribe all the way around our joint, and that will make it much easier to cut out. So we repeat that for all the other pieces that have an X's. And on the end pieces, don't forget you'll be scribing up around as well. Some lovely fresh wood there, and a lovely crunchy sound from the scribing process. Just finishing off the front and the back. These ones done already. And the final piece. You can feel I have those done from previous. And don't forget to do the ends as well. Again, keep your hands on the chisel. Rotate the wood to help you out. And we repeat that then for the male joints on the ends. Just do number 4 here. Both hands on your chisel, you just can't go wrong then in terms of safety. And don't forget the sides here as well. Okay, so that will be all 4 of our sides marked out and scribed. Just line them up here again just to get our bearings again. Okay, so we have side 3, perfectly matching side 3 on the end, side 4 matching side 4, 1 and number 2 all matching up. So they're fully ready now to take to the vise and the saw and get them all cut out, and then we will get them fitted together and finished. And you're a long way on your way there to having your finished jewellery box. That's the hard work, the marking out. Once you can get around it and get it into your head and get it marked out, the rest is pretty much easy. Okay, so look forward to seeing you in the marking out video for the jewellery box. Again, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button and the reminder bell. We'll have video out every 2 weeks to 1 month. If you want the kits, you can order them below from our eBay site. If you live too far away and delivery is too much, you can sign up for Patreon and I'll send you a cutting list